So I've been leaving a few messages with a few MPs, like usually Jamie Stern, mainly because like he's actually got an answering machine and you can leave a message. A lot of MPs now, you can't ring them up. They haven't got an answering machine. Like Starmer hasn't got one. All these new Reform MPs, Farage, Tice don't have them. Green Party, Carla Denyer hasn't got one. And I think, to be honest, if they're wanting to get people to vote for them, and if they're going to be like these new upcoming radical, diverse, or different parties, it just seems like the MPs who are, been there ages, or the major parties have got them. But well, Starmer's a major party, but he doesn't have it. But anyway. So look, right. This is the 20-mile-an-hour petition for Wales, right? Which got 469,571 signatures. I've been doing some more maths at the moment. Now, when I worked it out before, I was going from numbers which were appearing on websites, and they give the wrong number for the turnout. But it wasn't far off, actually, but I calculated it was, when I worked out how many people have signed this petition, right, in Wales out of the whole electorate, it worked out at just over 20%. And I've just been on the BBC website and got the figures, and it turns out it was about 19%. So it was under 20%, which is quite ironic because it's almost like the difference between getting done for speeding 20 mile an hour or not, if it was over 20 or under 20. It's actually 19% of all Wales that signed it. Now, that is well over 5% of all of Wales that signed that this petition here, right? Now, the thing is, this is the map, right? So if you click on different areas, tells you how many people have signed it, like 5,062 signatures, 6,255. It only tells you it's like 1.32% of all of the signatures, 2.5%. But the thing is, what it doesn't tell you how many percent of that area signed it. So if we select this like area here at the end, Pembrokeshire, right, Preseli, it says that 8,508 signatures. That's quite a lot, right? 1.812% out of the whole people that signed. It doesn't tell you what percentage they're not giving you, right? They're not telling you a number, which is how many percentage of that area that's lit up signed it. It's not telling you. Tells you how many people signed it, but it doesn't tell you how many people out of how many people could have signed it. How many people, like, what is the maximum turnout possibility? Because then it would have this figure for an electorate. Now, each of these areas, right, is an electoral area, okay? And then within them, then you've even got other local councils, but these are the main. These are major, in Wales, these are major electoral areas, right? Now, if Wales as a whole country, if they've got 20%, 20% of the whole country who can vote, sign that petition, and further to that, it's way over 5%. So when you click on one of these, it's if you divide that up, unless one area like is excessively signed more than others, like some of these darker red areas, right? But generally, I can't see how any of these areas would have less than 5% of the electorate signed to them. They've got some of these, most of these areas, which I can work this out, but I need to find out what the I'd have to just get a calculator up and divide each of these areas, however million it is. Oh, it's 2.3. It's 2,355,492. Right? So that needs to be divided by all these different areas here to how much is in each area. But I would have thought that if they've got 19 to 20%, well, it's 19 and a bit percent, it's unlikely that, because this is actually quite evenly spread when you look at it, it's unlikely that any of these areas is going to have under 5% signed. They're all going to have over 5%. Now, this is the thing. In this act of law, which I've just pulled up now, which is called the Local Authorities Petitions England Order 2010, right? Now, there's no other act turning up on legislation.gov, and I don't think there is another one. But I think this has been that I'd never found this before when I was looking for those other acts. They've got local referendums and so forth, but they're all similar. They all have the same essential model, which they've kind of like based on for this local sort of referendums and petitions. And they've all got a clause, they've all got like an escape clause, which is basically like also in the Recall of MPs Act 2015, which says that, like, you know, by an MP's death or otherwise, which, what is otherwise? Well, otherwise is that there are other ways that exist. Well, what might they be? Well, you know, if you want to do a petition yourself to either of the Houses of Parliament, not one that the government runs, it's almost like, you know, oh, if an MP breaks the law, you know, we'll petition everyone, see if they want him removed. But, well, what if you want him removed anyway, even if he hasn't broken the law? You know, can we do that? Well, he might not be happy about that. He might have an heart attack or something if everyone went around collecting signatures. Well, but can you do it? Can you ask for it? You know, well, why not? You can petition for anything. You know, what about forfeiture committee? They don't want you to do it, but you got a right to do it. That's what an escape clause is. It's like a little clause tucked in the corner, like what effectively says that, you know, you can do what you want, but they don't really want you to see or notice it, right? Effectively. But don't worry, you don't need to use that or notice it, because we've got this nice little system set up that we're going to use, you know, if, you know, by what we want to do, right? Now, what it says in this Local Authorities Petitions in England Order 2010 is pretty much exactly what it says in the other acts, which they had up there previously, which I've read. It's not got anything. It's all got to be compatible. It's all like full compatibility. It says that this is really important, right? I've already been complaining about the number of signatures on this petition and that there should be a referendum, right? Or they're entitled to one. Now, in this 2010 Local Authorities Petitions England Order 2010, right? This is really important because it's not just the fact that you've got to try and, you know, if you manage to get 5% of the electorate, you can. It says that you got the secretary. It says you can ask the Secretary of State for a referendum, right? A local referendum. What it's actually saying is, it's saying that this is really important. This, if you get over 5%, you can't have a local decision. The local council can't decide on it because you've exceeded the threshold. Now, you've got matters which are government decisions anyway, like, you know, Stonehenge Tunnel or whatever, as opposed to Wiltshire Council, because it's like a national infrastructure thing. But then you've got some other things decided by the council, things in and around it and all that. And then you've got local decisions, but it doesn't say that just because you've got local petitions to the local council, it doesn't say that you can't petition the government about it. All it says is that you've got certain things that are covered by the local council, which are their matters to deal with. But just because it's their matters to deal with, it's like the House of Lords have got things that they deal with, right? I'll tell you what, this whole thing, right? This whole thing with the local council petitions, you know what? What it is, it's like House of Commons, House of Lords, right? House of Commons does certain things, right? And it makes certain orders, right? And the House of Lords does certain things and makes certain orders, right? They're both in Parliament, but they're both separate. And they've both got their own jurisdiction. And when you put something through Parliament, it gets voted on in one place and it goes through into another, right? Now, what about petitioning? Well, you've got a right to petition either of the Houses of Parliament. Well, which one should you petition? Well, this is the special part, right? You can choose. You get to decide. Now, they say no one ever petitions the House of Lords. You know, you've got to petition one of the Lords and try and get them to present it for you or whatever, mainly because, you know, they never reply to you and they can't be bothered. But, like, traditionally, if you read the whole history of it, you know, there's a lot more engagement in there. You can petition the House of Lords. You've got a right to do it. Now, it's your choice. And in fact, in the 1661 Tumultuous Petitioning Act, it says petitions to either or both Houses of Parliament, which seems to suggest that you might even be able to submit two separate petitions, one to each, right? Or the King. Now, this is the thing. You get to choose two separate authorities, right? But it's still Parliament. Now, what a coincidence. We've also got His Majesty's government. It's like His Majesty's government. It's all His Majesty's, right? So you can choose, oh, shall I petition the House of Commons? Oh, shall I petition the House of Lords? Oh, shall I petition the King and Council? Oh, how about petitioning a local council? This is the thing. So choosing to petition a local council is a little bit like choosing whether you want to petition the House of Lords or the House of Commons. It's your choice. But there's no point petitioning Wirral Council about building a house in Scotland, is there? Because it's not in the Wirral. But if you're in Cornwall and someone's building a house and you're not happy with the council's decision, ironically, there's a place called Parliament with two houses there, and you know, they've actually got a jurisdiction authority over the whole country, ironically, and you've got a right to ask them. Now, this is the thing. In 2006, when Tony Blair set up the Number 10 e-petitions website, they were petitioning about local matters on there, because I've seen on Parliament website multiple petitions from local groups, like, you know, the knitting club of, you know, Biggleswade or whatever it is, right? Or you know, canoeing club of Rutland Water or something, right? So they were petitioning local groups about local stuff to Parliament. That was 2006, okay? Now, this is, I've looked through every act of law which has got the word petition in the title on legislation.gov. This act, which is distinguishing between local matters for building and planning and roads and highways and all those kind of things, it's 2010. So 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's like 4 years after they opened that Number 10 Parliament website. And now they're saying, oh, you can't petition about local matters. Well, that's funny because I'm sure you were doing it between 2006 and 2010, right? Because I've seen local group. In fact, they don't even necessarily have someone's name. They're even petitioning like under like the group name on some of them, right? So what changed? Well, the thing is, in this act, this 2010 order, there's nothing in that order which says that you don't have a right to petition Parliament on a local matter, or you can't. Nothing. All it's doing is it's saying that there are particular things that councils make decisions on, right, which are covered by local council petitions, right? And then there are certain things that the government make decisions on which fall under Parliament petitions, right, to start with, right? That's just like they're classifying them, right? Just because you classify something, right, does not mean that you don't have another right to ask another authority. It's like saying, do you know what it's like saying? It's like saying, right, summary offences are dealt with by a magistrate's court, and indictments are dealt with by a Crown court, right? So, what am I doing in a magistrate's court if someone's murdered someone? Oh, well, all criminal prosecutions start in the magistrate's court, but indictments end up in the Crown court. Oh, that's funny. Does that mean that it's also, CPS pops up in there, does it? Right? Well, that's funny. If it's only a summary offence and I'm in a magistrate's court, how is it that if I paid a fine, right? If I didn't pay a fine, parking fee, right? And I got to the magistrate's court and they convict me and I lose, how is it that I'm studying in the Crown Court? Oh, well, did you appeal it? Yes, I appealed it to a higher authority. That's funny. It's summary offences, indictments. There are some things that the Crown Court deal with and some things that the Magistrate Court deal with. And as a matter of fact, there are things that the County Court deal with as well. Well, that's a funny coincidence because, so it's actually just like the rest of the whole system. Now, what they're saying is, they're saying, if you collect so many signatures, right, in a local area, 5%, he was saying that you can get a referendum. Now, that's in one act of law. And that's a model that's set out for particular procedures for and so forth. But what it didn't say in that act, it didn't say that if you get over 5%, it cannot not be heard by the local council, right? They can't hear it. So that means that if you get over 5%, it's not going to be heard by the local council. It's not going to be heard by the local council. It's not going to be decided, right, by the local council. So, riddle me this, right? If we're in Wales now, right, and they've got 20% of all Wales or 19% of all Wales, right, have signed this petition, and if, without doing the maths now, but we can safely say, or we can confidently say that most of these areas, right, are going to have over 5% of its local population signed, without doubt. I would have thought. Now, the Welsh government is what the Welsh government has been doing recently is saying, it's backed down on its 20 mile an hour policy, but it says that it's going to let each area make up its own decision of whether it keeps them or not. But riddle me this: if they've got signatures, right, with Welsh Government, official signatures, right, documented, with over 5% of any of these respective individual areas, which is a defined electoral area, right? If any of these defined areas has got over 5%, which I'm quite confident that most of them have, how can any of the local authorities make a decision themselves on whether or not they keep 20 mile an hour or not? Because if a defined electoral area gets over 5%, it can't be decided by the local area. So why have they done that? Why have they done that? What it means is that either every single one of these areas should have a referendum, because or the whole of the country run by the Welsh Government, well, or every single one of these areas which has got over 5%, it has to have a referendum. In fact, even if the Secretary of State was to say, I'm not going to give you one, the local council can't decide. So how can they be saying that the local authorities are going to make any decision on whether they keep or scrap them? Because they can't. So the Secretary of State for Transport is going to have to give them it. Because that's what it is. It's like, it's saying that in this act, it means that if you walk into a shop, right, and it says, right, a bag of nuts is £5, unless, you walk in there and you put £5 on the table and you still have a bag of nuts, please, that's £5. It means that if you've got £5, you can have it. No, unless you're bad. And that's an interesting word, bad. Is bad, right? Are the Welsh Government barring the Welsh people from having a referendum? It seems to me like they're bad. Like, we're not going to serve you. We don't want your business in here. And that's ironic, seeing that all those people, I know that the Welsh Government ran the petition on the website, but the people had to share it themselves. And they got as many signatures on that petition as, in percentage-wise, of all Wales, as Sadiq Khan got in London. And obviously London has got, a hell of a lot of people, right? But Sadiq Khan did not himself, with polling stations everywhere and with a full political party campaign and everyone being told that, go and vote on a certain day, Sadiq Khan only did he didn't do as good as the people of Wales did, but sharing it themselves and not having polling stations, right? Only doing it online and sharing on websites. So, so there's a very, very strong opposition to the Labour Party. And what I think it is that the people aren't in control of the country. The police chiefs and the Inspectorate of Police and Charles and the military and the army, or not all the military and the army, because some of them are on YouTube grumbling and complaining about what the government are doing. So it can't be every person in the army, but a lot of them. So there's some strain, there's some militia, there's some authoritarian force. We need to find out who and what it is. Is it Keir Starmer? Is it Charles? Is it just the gang of police chiefs united like football team or something, right? Who is it? Where are all these cameras coming from? Is it MRR Buffnot? Is it James Bond 007? Is it that MI5 chief who thinks that he's Q from James Bond? Oh, I want some new security cameras. They aren't voting for them. But yet we're paying for their uniforms, we're paying for their, what happens if people, like on Russell Brand when he's like, don't pay electricity bills or whatever, and the next thing, the Queen's dead in the morning. You know, what happens if everyone said, "Well, we're not gonna pay for the police uniforms. We're not giving them any money," right? You know, some of the police are going, "Oh, we're not making any money out of this. We're just ticking over. You know, we're just running these courses." Well, you know, how are we running these courses when you ain't getting electricity in the building? This is the thing. So, you know, why aren't these people getting a vote for it? Because they don't. The authorities don't want there to be a possible vote which can say we don't want to do what they're doing, and they can't handle that. They can't handle losing. And I don't know how, you know, it's to do with council meetings, private meetings, security meetings, and this is like the police at a table as a body, as making a political representation to a council or advising on security or police, but not the people voting on it. And what it is representatives of groups and bodies who are getting decisions through, not by the electors. And this is what I've got a video on my main webpage, you know, underneath the Donald Trump video with this Kew Gardens, where they've got this land in Kew Gardens, and there was some dispute over the change of ownership and usage, and it turns out that Sir Peter Fahey is a representative of this charity, and he pulled strings for it, and it wasn't down to the electors' vote, and he did it because he's the police chief, right? And he's got a lot of political weight behind him. And that's what's happening with all these cameras around the country and, you know, things like that, and all these other security and surveillance projects. Effectively, Emma Arbuthnot, the judge, and her husband in MI5 are effectively, and Charles, are running this country, not the voters, which is basically like 1661 type of law. It's like pre-Bill of Rights. It's like, you know, this is the King's Army, and Parliament don't really control the army or have a say in the army, right? It means that Charles is the military commander of England, and both foreign and domestic, which basically means that our electoral votes don't really control the domestic military directive within the country, which means that we aren't really voting on how we are policed, right? Although we're paying for it all. And you know, it didn't matter too much when we were the ones bringing the prosecutions, right? When you're directing your own prosecutions, and when you're doing your own arrests, and when you're getting your own lawyers, and you're just getting the police to arrest people until they turn up in court, if you can't do it yourself, it's not too bad. But what has happened when the police become a body, a party, a political party, is that they are directing all prosecutions and choosing who gets prosecuted and who doesn't, right? Not us. So they're actually they're directing and controlling law. All offences and prosecutions. And now we've got all these laws coming in over ridiculous things, like ridiculous domestic, chit-chat and stuff. So we aren't actually in control of how the law gets used, applied. And the law is meant to be there for everyone, including criminal and civil law. It's there to protect us, but it's there to use to protect, you know. It isn't the police's law. And it's ended up from, you know, the early 1800s The police have taken the criminal side of the law away from us. They actually, it was, the whole of it was ours, and both criminal and civil, the police were mediators in. And now the police have kind of left all the civil law, which is now taken up by very expensive lawyers who are just fleecing us all out of money. And they've completely dominated and taken over the criminal side of law, except no one gets arrested for. We've all got the privilege of not being arrested for civil suits, which includes, Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos. Because, if Jeff Bezos owed you, like 20 quid, you could go get him arrested and put him in prison. That would be quite funny. There's no privileges for Jeff. I mean, if Jeff did owe you, or if Amazon owed you, money, you could go get him arrested. You could go arrest Bill Gates if he owed you some money. Or Elon Musk, you could just go get him arrested. Well, Elon Musk owes me £6.50. Well, go fucking arrest him, right? Everyone's got the privilege of not being arrested now for civil matters. And but what it does is it makes a criminal seem more serious than civil. But civil could have been as much serious as criminal. But we don't appreciate that now because everyone's privileged in civil law. So when it's a political matter, which is quite a serious, important thing, and we're all going to be protected, it's criminal law. Not all criminal law is super serious, like murders. There is criminal law that's not that serious, particularly if you've got a cause. It's not malice, and it's all to do with the reasons and cause. It is to do with the reasons and causes anyway when you're asking people, in a trial, it's to do with, motivations and things like that. And unfortunately, at the moment, they've been taking the political side far too seriously when it's not actually punishable. So there's that as well, which is a separate issue to do with, like, these petitions when we're meant to be protected. Because you're doing something for the country. It's like community service, effectively. When you're doing petitioning, it effectively is community service of its own. So that's a big thing when it comes down to what is even happening to these people. When they get prosecuted when they're not meant to be. So according to this Local Authorities Petitions England Order 2010, it cannot be. If Brecken's got over 5% signed, which I can find out, but, judging by the fact that 20%, all of these different areas have got to have some well over 5% signed, surely. The local council cannot decide on it. They're not allowed to decide on it, but the Welsh Government, for some strange reason, has said that they're all making their own separate decisions up. And I don't know why it said that, when they should know that this Local Authorities Petitions England Order 2010 explicitly prohibits that. It prohibits it. They're not allowed to make the decisions because over a certain amount of people, even actually in the local area. I mean, I even think that this should count for Parliament because they can't stop people having an interest in an area. If I click an angle, see there, right? This is the thing. It's all down to money, really. And this is what the government really need to understand, that just because you've got a suitcase full of money, right? If you live in, if you live here, right? If you live there, and then just because you have got a load of money and buy a house there, right? Anglesey, you've only managed to do that because of money, currency, right? Now, when you apply for planning permission, you ain't going to apply for planning permission there if you bought a house there because they're the people who make the decisions for that, right? But you've only bought land there because you can afford it because you've got money. Now, if you put an application in for a consent permission to that council, right, you're only there because that's where you go, to ask for permission. Now, if someone wants to oppose it, right, if someone from here can sign a petition to stop someone there building a house. Why? Because they've got a right to. Because they've got an interest in it, because it's a country and they've got an opinion, and they have a right to tell the king what they think about, what's going to happen to that place. Because why can you even buy a house there? Who says that someone from here can buy a house there? He doesn't live there. So why can he buy a house there? What gives him the right to buy a house there? What gives him the right to buy a house there? He don't live there. He doesn't live there. He doesn't live there. He's not from there. What gives him the right to purchase a house? Why don't they say, you can't legally buy a house here? When he goes into the council to get planning permission, why don't they say, you're not from Anglesey, you can't apply for planning permission? What gives him the right to go into that council, right, as a man from Pembrokeshire? What gives him the legal right in law to go to that council and apply for planning consent? Because he's an English citizen and he's got the right to buy anything in England and the right to apply. Now you might say, well, because he owns it. Well, you ain't going to apply for something if you don't own anything, because there's nothing to apply for. But if you are in England and you've got a right of a subject of England, you can still like or dislike something or have an opinion, And this is where they're trying to make out that, your will, your opinion is not worth anything unless it's on a pound note. Well, it's called a bill, right? A £5 bill, a £10 bill. When I write out and say, John Smith shall not build an house in a field in Anglesey, and I write it down on a paper petition, right? And I hand it into the council in Anglesey, that is a bill, right? It is a bill. I am objecting with a bill, right? And that is an English bill, right? And this is the thing. When you go buy a field in Anglesey, you buy it with a bill. You buy it with a, 3 square foot of field is £5, right? And if you want to build a hamster fucking circus on it, right, or something, you buy it because you've got the sovereignty of the currency to purchase it. And this is what the councils don't like. Oh, we don't want any interest in our area. They like interest in the area when they want people to go there and go on the fairground rides and go buy candy floss, and they want people to have an interest, right? This is great. It's a seaside. But when there are people who want to object and sign petitions, and suddenly it's like, do you use the facilities here, Well, yeah, I use the facilities there because I look at Google Maps. That's a facility. I'm going around looking at these beautiful houses, and now you're going to demolish them, so I won't be able to joyride on Google Maps and look around the place, Yeah, I do have an interest in there since they made Google Maps, I cruise the area with Google Maps, I've got a permanent interest, this is the thing, right? So, this is the problem. So, I severely doubt that any of these areas has got under 5% of the people signed. Although, I'll do the maths for it. But what they're doing now is actually illegal. It's unlawful. And I don't know why they didn't know that and pull that up. They must have checked into it. Although I've seen some of the petitions committee debates in the Senedd, and I don't, it's questionable whether they've got the knowledge for it or not. on the precipice. I don't think they have, judging by some of those MPs and their caricature, their kind of general knowledge, who they are. I don't think that they know the law properly. And I think that ill-advised by the legal department. And then the rest of it is that we're being scammed by Labour. They don't want us to do it. Where there's a will, there's a way. There's no will. The will is to obstruct and block. They're not up for it. And then you've got these dark knights in the background, like the police chiefs, who are like, threatening, like, intimidating, threatening, like, that bad things are going to happen or whatever. Like, it's not their vote, is it? Well, they get a vote, but they're having more than a vote. They're going to these meeting tables as a body, and they're ending up, doing what Mark Rowley did with that Kew Gardens thing, which is sealing the deal for themselves and their career and the force. And we want cameras. We want all these gadgets and things, but who's paying for them? Well, they don't care. Well, why doesn't the public retire, and why don't the police do everyone else's jobs for them? Why don't the police make widgets all day? And do policing. If the police want the money for all the cameras and the equipment and the sweaty shirt and the truncheon and the taser and the police car and the helicopter and the rest of it, why don't they fucking why don't they pay for it? Why don't they pay for it? In fact, why don't, all the police officers, all the tax from the police officers, that is the police fund, right? So all the tax that is taken from every police officer is the fund for the police allowance, right? And all of the security cameras and everything. And then, then none of us are paying for stuff we don't want, This is it. And then, on a Sunday, they can all volunteer to, walk around the coastline looking out for dinghies coming in illegally or whatever. But this is the thing. It's down to the Democratic vote. And it's always a sale pitch, isn't it? Like, newspaper, front cover story. They need to ban newspaper front covers because it's a drama. It's a dramatization of an incident. If the newspaper just had if every story had to be the same size, right? Okay, you can have sections, you can have a crime section, you can have, business section, whatever. If every single advert in the newspaper had to be like a certain square, like a certain column and square size. So there's no precedent or priority. There's no front page, scoop, cover story, dramatization, soap of any one particular story, chosen or selected to, push this or that view or whatever, or persuade the public one way or another, which is what they're using it for now. Then it would be different because they won't be able to push their stories. It would just be like, the obituary section, let's look at the obituary section, and that's it, day by day by day, just listen. There's, you can have all the events of what happened. You can have 500 people killed or whatever, or you can have no people killed, or you can have, 16 injured, 500, football accidents or whatever, all in a list. But what they're doing is they're picking certain things and producing into a drama presented to the people. Oh, it's like it's there to persuade or cause a public response. It's not there to inform people of what happened on that day, right? Or else, it was just like the obituary section, what happened on that day, right? And that's what the police are in the game of public opinion, that petitioning the subjects, the police's right to petition the subjects with their scoop, with their next roadkill scoop or whatever, which it has every right to be listed, but not dramatised and produced into an action cover story to provoke a political support for whatever police causes that they're wanting to push, and that's the difference. And at the end of the day, if people don't want it, then why should it be pushed on them? This is the thing. And that's what it comes down to, the Democratic vote. We're being scammed. And this is actually illegal. These areas all over 5% cannot be decided by the local authorities. It's unlawful.